Good morning, America, and welcome to this morning's Going on Offense webinar. My name is Daryl Moon, and I'll be your host today. This is our fifth webinar in our new series on workplace mental health and well-being best practices. The sponsor of this series of webinars is a very uniquely proactive mental health and personalized well-being strategy called Resilience Pro. The pandemic has significantly increased stress levels across the country. The uncertainty that we all face is introducing stress in most of us. So what can too much stress do to our bodies? Well, perhaps our most precious organ, our heart, can be damaged by uncontrolled stress. Heart disease is already our biggest killer in this country, and this pandemic isn't helping matters. Today's webinar is going to be on beating our employees' biggest killer, heart disease. I've been fascinated with this dilemma of heart disease for over 20 years, as I have focused my career on putting fences at the top of the cliff rather than just fixing people after they fall off. Well, over those 20 years, we have not made much progress in the early detection of heart disease. Sure, we can do a cholesterol screening at the work site, but some statistics show that most people who have a heart attack had normal or average cholesterol levels. Here is the statistic that is so alarming. 1 in every 4 deaths in the US is caused by heart disease. That's 655,000 people per year. Now let's compare that to the 230,000 people that have died of coronavirus this year. Far more people are dying from heart disease, and in over half of those deaths, the individual's first symptom is the heart attack that killed them. That's pretty significant. In my opinion, there's no greater public health crisis in America than heart disease. It kills more people every year than all the cancers combined. Think of all the efforts that we make to encourage colonoscopies for everyone over 50. Why aren't we encouraging people to have their heart checked out, especially when 90% of coronary artery disease is reversible? If you think that it's just old people who are dying of heart disease, that's not the case. The prevalence is just as great in people under the age of 65 as it is over the age of 65. Well, I'm honored to have with me as my guest panelists today, 2 gentlemen that are as passionate about changing all of this as I am, and perhaps even more passionate. Dr. Joseph Shen is with Premier Heart. He's the CEO and founder of Premier Heart that has developed an exciting new technology called the multifunction cardiogram, or what we refer to as the MCG. And David Blanchard is the CEO of the Augmentino Leadership Institute. And because this is a very personal thing to him, he started the company Your Heart Test. Gentlemen, thank you for being with me today. Perhaps you can each take a minute to introduce yourselves. And Dr. Shen, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. My name is Joseph Shen. I'm a trained physician and also a technology developer. I'm one of the physician members of a team that have pioneered a way to reimagine how the EKG should be used to detect heart disease early, more accurately, and also especially to spot people who have propensity to die from silent sudden cardiac death sooner, so we can do something to reverse it. And I totally agree with Daryl that 90% people with this even very severe heart diseases, if treated early, detected early, can be reversed. So that has been our mission, to bring this technology forward. This technology is based on a set of mathematical principles, and we use artificial intelligence and data analysis, digital signal processing, to make this as accurate as possible. And currently, we believe our technology is the most accurate technology in the world to detect heart diseases, not only early, but also very accurately, can deliver life-saving information in a timely manner so people can live a healthier and better lives.
Great, David.
Thank you. Go ahead.
David, do you want to introduce yourself now?
Thank you, Daryl. It's great to be with you. And Dr. Shin, it's always wonderful to be with you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank
10
you,
years
David.
of my career, I spent managing doctors and clinics. It was the largest medical management consulting firm south of Los Angeles. 20 years ago, I took over the responsibility for the Og Mandino book. Most people know the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. But this is a really personal topic to me because my grandfather died at 59 years of age in my grandmother's arms between the kitchen and the living room. And there was nothing she could do. First symptom, massive heart attack took his life. My father died 4 years ago from heart disease with 3 stents. As Dr. Finn knows, I had an episode this year with bilateral pulmonary embolism, and the MCG, I say, saved my life. So this is a really personal topic. And I'm going back to my roots because I got introduced to this by a client who's a cardiologist, and I became an investor, then a consultant, and then a marketer because I could see how this could change the world. And coming full circle back to you, Daryl, with your vision of taking this into corporate wellness and being able to help someone in the C-suite of corporate America, the most critical employees, making sure their heart's okay because they're under enormous stress right now. And most of them are not taking care of their bodies. They've got 100-hour work weeks. And Dr. Shin, I wanted to add to what you say. To take a test you can do in 10 minutes, non-invasively, and know immediately the condition of your heart. The way I'm saying it is finally time for your heart to be heard. So that's my passion around the topic.
I agree.
Thank you. I'd like to mention to our attendees that you're welcome to send in questions or comments. I'll be monitoring those as we go throughout the webinar. So feel free to ask questions that you might have for this group of panelists. I think one of the most exciting things about the MCG test is the first good heart scan that can be easily taken to the work site to make it convenient for people to have their heart assessed. David, describe to us how the test is administered.
Well, I am not a technician, and I have performed, I bought one of the machines. I bought one, I wanted one, they're portable. And I've performed probably 15, 16 of them now on people that I love dearly, that I want to make sure they're okay. It's relatively simple. V5, and Dr. Shin can talk more about that. It's right here under your chest. Kind of an input, an output on your 2 wrists and 2 ankles. And then there's an 82-second period of time that it reads the signal between the V5 and the 2, and it repeats that 5 times.
And are people on a treadmill or are people laying down? Describe what the person is doing.
I went and bought a portable massage table, Dr. Shin. It's very simple. Just like Daryl, I did yours. You know that. We had you down on a table and connected you, ran 5 82-second tests, sent it up, digitized it, sent it up to the computers. The computer sent the information back, and we could look at your test results. Now, I couldn't put them. I put you with Dr. Shin because it requires a physician to really be able to read it accurately, or a nurse practitioner that's been well trained. But you know, my question back to you is, as simple as that was, what was it like for you to know?
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, I remember years ago when the coronary or the carotid artery ultrasound came out, and I could go in and have a technician do an ultrasound of my carotid artery, and they could see whether I had plaque building up. I thought this is really great, but it wasn't practical to take it out to the work site. It was not a practical test that could be administered to lots of people at the work site. And so this is like, well, this is something that's practical. I mean, like, you can stick it in a briefcase, you can haul it off to anywhere in the country, you can sit down and do a whole bunch of people, one right after the other. So it makes it a practical screening tool, which is great. Now let's compare the MCG with some of the common tests used today to assess the health of the heart, like the stress echo. Dr. Shen, how does the MCG compare to an EKG? And talk a little bit about the false positive rates between the two.
Yes. The EKG actually, from our vantage point, it's obsolete, and it's 125 years old. And the basic premise of EKG is to detect heart attacks and unfortunate arrhythmias. The problem is that it misses people have very, very severe heart diseases and the accuracy is about less than 30%. That is really, we have done our own research, and based on also data that we've collected over the years, that EKG is just to us useless. And MCG is designed to solve that problem, actually. MCG is at least 5 times more accurate when compared to EKG for people who have very severe heart diseases. And then if you stood 10 people with heart diseases, EKG pick up 3, MCG pick up 9.5. Okay, nearly 9.9%, 9.9 of them. That's the difference. So that's between EKG and MCG.
Nice. So the gold standard in heart assessment is the coronary angiogram. At least that's what many say. But that requires hospitalization, putting a catheter into an artery up my leg, and then releasing dye. That's going to cost about $10,000. And it's not practical to think that everybody can just have one of those to see how the heart is. How does the MCG compare to a coronary angiogram?
Yeah, we compared MCG results to coronary angiogram because that's the only observable objective measurements that the cardiologists have in their hands, because they can see it on the screen, they can see the artery, they can see the dye go through the artery, they can see the blockages. Okay, so we use that when we compare, say, if the patient has coronary disease leading to heart muscle distress called ischemia, then we'll see the degree of that. Then MCG, the degree of abnormal ischemia as a result of different degree of blockages between artery, large coronary arteries. That's the only way to compare. So we compare to that. And MCG has been consistently demonstrated over the past 20 years as 90+% concordance in agreements for obstructive coronary disease, but defined by 70 to 75% more blockage of a big artery that is visible on the screen. And so it's been verified, confirmed multiple times, and even American Medical Association gave us a CPT code descriptor saying MCG use multiple medical functions, and they use the artificial intelligence to analyze the data and come up to detect obstructive coronary disease. That was really unheard of in the history of medical CPT code descriptor writing. So the reason is that we provided evidence to say that definitively MCG matches what angiogram says. In fact, I have a customer of mine, and in Indonesia, he holds my machine, hopping islands from on his private boat, going from island to island. And he said, yeah, he hold the machine, said, "This is my portable cath lab."
Well, and talk just a little bit about how long the MCG's been around. Talk a little bit about where it's used. I know it's used a lot in Asia. In fact, I understand that you have to have an MCG if you're going to climb Mount Everest. And what's the FDA approval, in terms of this country? Talk a little bit about its use.
Yes, and MCG is being approved, cleared by FDA for more than a decade now. And the MCG now is in the hands of primary care physicians and cardiologists, and now beginning to get into emergency rooms and to be accepted by physicians, and particularly the primary care physicians. They worry about the early detection, prevention, and the emergency room physicians worry about missing patients, send somebody home with chest pain, then they come back dead or severely impaired because of a missed heart attack. Within 30 days, they get lawsuits. So those are the typical early adopters. Then we have cardiologists. They understand the importance of our technology, because MCG bridges the gap between what angiogram can see, and then you can see the rest of the macro molecules like DNA, blood testing, and look at the chemistry. We're filling the knowledge gap between the blood tests, the imaging tests, that the knowledge gap in the middle that has been missing literally for 125 years.
Nice. So today's focus of our discussion is on how practical it would be to build a test like the MCG into a company's overall heart health strategy. One of the greatest risks that companies have is the loss of a key member who suddenly dies from an unexpected heart attack. We all probably know of a situation like that. Not only is that an incredibly emotionally challenging event for families and friends and colleagues, but can also be very disruptive to the company. I know a company that's close to us where a senior vice president in the last 3 or 4 years had a sudden heart attack, died, and gone. You know, it was devastating to the company. David, talk a little bit about how a company can build the MCG into their own overall health strategy.
Want me to take a stab at that?
Yeah.
And I want to reference one other piece of Dr. Finn's genius in putting this together, because when we come into an executive suite and do MCGs, we're going to find some people who fit that category or on the verge of a heart attack who don't have a symptom. We're going to find those people, and that's going to save lives, and that's part of my driver, right? We're also going to find a segment of the population who has already started to develop some heart issues, but they're not even issues that would yet be picked up by angiography or by a stress EKG, but they're in development and can be quickly reversed by lifestyle changes. That to me is the biggest part of the population, and having a machine that can tell you ahead of time. The gold standard, it can, as Dr. Shin very happily shared, can match the angiogram, but what the angiogram or stress EKG can't pick up are those things that are in process, or those things that are happening in vessels less than 7 mils. And I'd love to have Dr. Shin talk about some of the heart challenges that occur in vessels smaller than can even be measured in angiography. So we have an opportunity to go into a corporation and say, look, wouldn't it be nice to know where you are? Like you said, Daryl, okay, I'm okay. And that's wonderful. Ooh, I've got variant gradation here of problems. You know, I know I'm supposed to lose a few pounds. I know I should be exercising more. Oh my goodness, I'm on the verge of, all of a sudden I've got an impetus to do it. So to the corporation, we can help provide you with a tool that can inspire your people to take better care of themselves so we don't get to a catastrophic issue. And then again, those that are on the verge of catastrophic, those will be wonderful to find. Saving the others from ever getting there, that's more exciting.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the recent study that was presented at, I can't remember the name of the institution, but the emergency room, and how they can use use it in the emergency room to detect who can be sent home and who should stay. Who would like to take that one on?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. We've been looking at this issue for the emergency room physicians for about a couple of decades now, and we identified that one of the major risks for the emergency room physicians is to send somebody home with normal EKG, normal blood test, normal everything, and then within 30 days after they were sent home, they came back dead or severely impaired due to a severe heart attack. And so that's a major problem. The patient dies and family suffers, then lawsuit. So what we can do is to help them to identify those that in that category, so they don't have to be sent home prematurely. They should be kept in the hospital, treated properly, reverse the disease. They don't have to go through that tragedy. The other part is that a majority of people who showed up in emergency room for chest pains, they really don't have very severe heart diseases. The problem is because of the issue I just brought up, the ER physicians are petrified, that they're scared to death to send everybody home. So what they do is that even though you have a normal blood test, normal EKGs, they keep you in hospitals for 48, 72 hours under observation to make sure things don't go out of control. So that's a major waste of space resources, manpower. It's very costly to them. They only get paid a flat fee. So the longer you keep the patient in the hospital, the more people you spend on, the less money you make. So that's a major issue for them. That's actually a bigger issue than the lawsuit issue. So they wanted the tool that can identify both sides of the spectrum. The people who have severe disease can be kept safe. People have no disease within an hour, literally 10 minutes actually, they can be sent home. So MCG, we went into the clinical trial. We look at it about 1,000 patients, and we'll continue collecting data to say where is the sweet spot where we can control, use MCG data to decide this patient can go home safely. This patient should be going to the hospital, and then look at it, how accurate MCG can be. It turns out MCG was accurate to help them to make that decision with sensitivity of 100%, negative predictive value of 100%. What that means is that a ER physician, when they use the MCG data, can feel very certain, very safe to send somebody home without having to worry about the 30-day tragedy. So that's now been proven. The American College of Emergency Physicians published this this abstract. The article is going to come out very shortly to analyze in the greater details. It was published on the Annals of Emergency Medicine, which is a great honor to us, and we've been waiting for this for a long time. And this basically will give the comfort level for the ER physicians to begin adoption of MCG technology in their emergency rooms.
That's pretty cool. I wanted to mention to those that are on the webinar that one of the handouts, there's actually a couple of handouts that you can download right now during the webinar. One of them is my MCG results, which I'm willing to share with you. So if you're interested to take a look at what an MCG report looks like, and we don't have to get somebody else's HIPAA permission, you got my permission to download my report just to look at what it does and what it says. And it's actually fairly simple. I mean, it gives you what your score is on each of the 5 82-second scans, you know, and I had the severity was 0, 0, 3, 0, 0. So it's like, okay, I got zeros in 4 of them, but I had a 3. And I know Dr. Shen, you mentioned, you know, Daryl, you've got some minor risks there, and maybe it's the stress, because stress can cause those kinds of minor problems, but you can get to a 0. And that was pretty impactful for you to say, Daryl, you're in the 90 percentile. You got a great heart, but it's not perfect, and you can get to all zeros. So go do some stress management.
Yeah, actually, that's very, very poignant, because that's most common patients test in that particular range of people. It's about 80 to 90%. When they come in, they don't have a lot of heart problems. They're doing very stressful lifestyle, or they eat wrong foods. They are very sedentary. They don't exercise. What do you see? You see all sorts of problems here, problem there. But those problems can be alleviated, reversed, and by simple lifestyle modification. And it's even some people have a moderate amount of heart disease, and even more severe than yours, Daryl. And you know, I have give you example. One of our sales executives, and in his early 40s, and he has his family history of heart attacks and deaths in the family, and he was overweight, traveling all the time, eating wrong foods, and sitting in front of the computer or sitting, you know, in office, and very little exercise. So he just wanted to be tested, and so we tested him just exactly we did with you. And it turns out he had a moderate amount of ischemia, and mainly due to lifestyle. And so I told him, look, you don't have to go to stress testing. You don't have to get an angiogram. You don't have to jump up and down like there's a fire. All you have to do is eat right, exercise, and then test it again. See if it can be reversed. That's exactly what he did. He moved back home in Colorado mountains. He got onto a mountain bike and started eating. He actually picked one of the worst diet to lose weight called Whole30 diet on internet, and he just followed that. It turns out 60 days later, he came back, he was scored 4 or 5, around 3.5 range. And 60 days later, he came back with 0 scores. And all the things that tested abnormal, all gone. He was so happy, so motivated. So he kept the program going. A year later, he came back and tested it again, all zeros. So now, the implication of that is that a late 40s, somebody late 40 executive, he doesn't have to worry about heart attack for the next 10, 20 years. If he lives like that, you don't have to worry about it, because now you have a tool to measure that, and the problem solved.
Well, monitors are incredibly important. Being able to see where I am, particularly my heart. How's my heart doing?
Theoretically, and it's every 3 months, every 6 months, or every year, depends on severity. Somebody like you probably once a year, and to make sure that you don't have the kind of blip and the stress-induced, called a stress-induced spasm, because when you have stress, especially in the morning, and everything is so piling on, and the phone calls and the arguments and contracts and all that, and the traffic, all these things can cause the stress hormone to surge. When surge happens, that the arteries tend to react to that. They can become tightened up, sometimes spasm, going up and down like this. And when that happens, guess what? Cut off the blood supply to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you relax and you don't have the stress hormone, the arteries open up, the supply to the heart gets restored. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
And then the problem goes away. Now, if you send somebody like you to the angiogram, they do an angiogram, you're laying down, relaxed, they do the routine on you, they don't see anything, because the angiogram can be completely normal because the artery is open. You relax, there's no hormone, you don't see that spasm, and it'd be normal. So it's a waste time and risky. So you don't need to spend $10,000 to find that out.
Yeah,
and so that's the difference.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and kind of wrap things up today. I'd like to mention for everyone that Resilience Pro is the sponsor of this series of webinars, and a brochure describing the solution is available for you to download through the control box. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, November 18th, so in 2 weeks. Join us as we discuss how to implement a comprehensive, proactive COVID testing strategy to protect your company and your workforce from the spread of coronavirus. Please join us on Wednesday, November 18th at 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. As a reminder, the recordings of all of these webinars can be found on goingonoffense.com. We'll be posting this one later today. The website also contains a host of other ideas, suggestions, and helps for organizations that want to provide emotional well-being support to their employees during these difficult times. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate your input, and we suggest everyone have a wonderful day.